in my first book that came out like 5 years ago, I write about this NBA player who happened to sit on a plane next to a geneticist. And the geneticist was like, why are you so tall? Like, you're 7.5 feet tall. Yeah. And he was like, I don't know. And so they genotyped him. And he didn't have any gigantism. There's no weird, rare thing going on. Yeah. What it was is there's the gene that makes you a millimeter taller than, or a little bit taller than your siblings. And he just had 6 standard deviations above the mean in all of these tiny. Wow. So it was like, the genetic, if you're rolling the genetic or flipping the genetic coin, it just came up heads like 1,000 times in a row. And that's why he's so tall. Right. So everything we're talking about when we're talking about addiction potential or likelihood statistically to be arrested for a crime, there's no crime gene. There's no addiction gene. There's really no obesity gene. There's lots of genetic differences. And so there's a distribution. But then every distribution, there's someone who ends up on the tails of that distribution. And that's where we see really big differences in their likelihood of developing one of these disorders.
Is AI going to completely make these correlations come rapid pace? Like, you must be using AI to go through all this DNA info.
So one of the big challenges now is we can find genes, now that we have many people, more rapidly than we can figure out what the heck they're doing. Yeah. There's still ambiguity sometimes as to like which gene this genetic variant is, because it's like it's located next to this one and this one. Like, what do we know about that? And then how do these combine to affect protein, to affect cells in which part of the brain?
I guess in that it's a pattern recognition machine. I feel like they'll be coming hot and fast.
I think that I'm very low confidence about my predictions for AI because I feel like the whole field is moving more rapidly than I'm comfortable like prognosticating about. But it's done amazing things with like protein folding problems, which are also really complex. And so how is our knowledge of the genome and the sheer amount of data that's available, plus the advances in AI, where are we going to be in 10 years? Like, I think where we are now would have felt like science fiction 10 years ago. Yeah. So definitely. I'm hopeful that AI will be particularly helpful in this. Okay, we have a gene, and then we have an outcome 25 years later, which is being arrested. What the heck is that gene what is it doing in the body, in the brain?
Well, now would be a great time to introduce the fact that this group of genes you and your colleagues have identified are most active in utero.
Yes. Yeah. So there's this idea that you sometimes get in psychiatry that some disorders are neurodevelopmental disorders. So you'll hear that autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder or schizophrenia is a neurodevelopmental disorder. And I'm always like, what makes something, what disorder is not neuro and not developmental? Right. Like everything is neurodevelopmental. And when we're looking at this collection of genes that predict misdemeanors, but also predict more serious antisocial offending and more serious substance use disorders, we can look with reference data sets and be like, okay, well, where in the body and when in development are these genes most turned on, most expressed? And it seems to be in the second and third trimesters of pregnancy. So in utero, prenatal development is when these genes are most specifically active. So that fits also with what we know from the animal literature on preterm birth, which disrupts brain development in utero, is associated with elevated risks of aggressive behavior in animals. Children who are born preterm are at elevated risk for ADHD and conduct problems. So there's something about pregnancy and your brain being grown when you're being cooked, right? That seems to be so really important. Pressure. And I think, again, the part of the reason that I think we struggle to make sense of this is we're so used to thinking about adult behaviors as choices. But the person doing that choosing was created by a developmental process that begins in utero and that, all of the luck of who they came home to the hospital, from the hospital to, is there. But that genetic luck starts affecting their brain development even before they come home from the hospital.
And then we get into the juicy philosophical element of this, which is we have come to have appropriate toleration for someone with ADHD, for someone with autism, and these are neurodevelopmental conditions that started in utero. It would hold that we would have that same level of compassion and understanding for the other ones that developed in neuro, which would be addiction and these other behaviors. But then philosophically, we have an interesting line between all of these.
Yes. People's intuitions about what does it mean if you can show that someone's behavior is linked to their early genetic and environmental luck. How should that affect how we treat them? Mm-hmm. Those intuitions are really unstable depending on what the behavior is. So if that behavior is weight, we're like, well, there's nothing wrong with being heavier or skinnier. Mm-hmm. If that behavior is sexual orientation, we're like, of course, like this is a difference between people. When it comes to addiction, I think we're kind of all over the place, actually, as a culture. Mm-hmm. But then as soon as there's harm to another person and there's violence, so they might have inherited a predisposition to violence, and that's supposed to make me more compassionate of them.
This is very Sapolsky, Determined, that book. And it's like, I was just thinking about this the other day. I think I'm a determinist. I really do.
Really? That's interesting.
Like,
before you got in here, we were both saying we love Sapolsky, but we don't like determinism.
You don't? So, knowing all this?
So this is, I don't know if I'm a determinist, like in the academic philosophy sense. So, the academic philosopher would say a determinist and an incompatibilist is someone who says, everything we do is determined by causal factors. That our agency is an illusion, mm-hmm. and having the freedom necessary for moral responsibility is incompatible with what we know about the determinist universe. I would say that I don't know if the universe is a determinist universe or not. That seems like a physics question that's like beyond my pay grade. And I don't know if we have free will in the way that a lot of philosophers, but I think that the practice of holding each other responsible is really baked into being human.
A social primate.
Yeah.
We're a social primate. Yeah. And so I think Sapolsky would carry it to, we're not free, so therefore blame is never appropriate, punishment is never appropriate. It's as useless to be mad at your husband who cheated on you as it is to be mad at the sky for raining. Whereas I don't know if we live in a determinist world. I don't know if we have free will, but we're all on this planet and we still have to make decisions about how we treat each other. Yeah. And I think holding each other accountable is not a supernatural condition, but a social one.